Ghost Hunting in New England,
your favorite spooky podcast. Hello and happy Wednesday. Welcome to this week's episode of Ghost Hunting in New England with your host, Amelia.
and it's really just going to be Amelia doing all the talking tonight. I'm Beth, and I'm just going to listen.
No, you're going to want to talk in on this one too.
Well, yeah, but mainly you're going to talk. I'm going to provide the editorializing.
There we go. Yep, you guys are stuck listening to me chatter away this week because we are talking about something very cool and interesting. And what might that cool and interesting thing be?
Lasagnas.
No.
Cats.
No.
Reiki masters.
Oh, God, I wish. This week, we are discussing vampires.
Ooh.
Now, not your Draculas, not your interview with the vampires, none of that. We are talking about the folkloric vampires of the Baltic area, of the Slavs, of all over Eastern Europe, the real vampires.
What does that have to do with New England?
Literally nothing. I just thought it'd be an interesting topic.
Is it about ghosts?
Oh, it's about vampires.
So we're not ghost hunting and we're not in New England?
Well, you could say that a vampire is a ghost.
No, I couldn't.
Yeah, a lot
A
of people
vampire
do.
is a vampire.
No, a lot of people do. You're going to learn all about it tonight.
Oh, if you say so.
Okay, so anyway. So tonight, as we talk all about vampires, and there's a lot of information here, people, so get ready. So we are going to begin all the way back in ancient Mesopotamia.
Woo-hoo!
Where many cultures had stories involving blood-drinking demons. There, ancient Babylonians had tales of the mythical Lilitu, thought to be synonymous with Lilith and her daughters, the Liu, from Hebrew demonology. Lilith was considered a demon and was often depicted as living on the blood of babies. The legend of Lilith was originally included in some traditional Jewish texts, and, according to medieval folk traditions, she was considered to be Adam's first wife before Eve. In these texts, Lilith left Adam because she refused to be Adam's subordinate, and thus was banished from Eden by God himself, and went on to become queen of the demons, and would prey on young babies and their mothers at night, as well as on males.
Lilith, the original feminist, and I guess this, if you listen to this lore at all, it goes to the idea that God could never be a woman, because why would a woman kick out the woman who knows what's going on? Just thinking and talking a little.
Because Hebrew law absolutely forbade the eating of human flesh or drinking of any type of blood, Lilith's blood drinking was described as exceptionally evil. To ward off attacks from Lilith, parents used to hang amulets around their child's cradle. The Hebrew word aluka is literally translated as leech and is synonymous with vampirism or vampires, as is motaz dam, which translates to blood sucker. Vampire stories among diaspora Jews in Central Europe were common. In them, a version of Lilith was held to be able to transform herself into an animal, usually a cat, and charm her victims into believing she is benevolent or irresistible. However, she and her daughters usually strangle rather than drain their victims. There are also legends about estries, female vampires of Jewish folklore that are believed to prey on the Hebrew citizens. Next up, we go to Albania. And Beth, did you know we have a pretty big Albanian population here in Massachusetts? We sure do. And in Albania, they have the Striga, which is a vampiric witch in Albanian mythology and folklore that sucks the blood of infants at night while they sleep, and then turns into a flying insect, usually a moth, fly, or bee. Only the Striga herself can be a cure for those she has drained. The Striga is often pictured as a woman with a hateful stare and a horribly disfigured face wearing a cape. They usually live in hidden places, such as forests, and have supernatural powers. The term Striga is used also with the common meaning of witch, referring to a bad and ugly old woman who casts evil spells to people. The male noun for Striga is Strigu, or Striga. According to legend, only the Striga herself could cure those she has drained by spitting into their mouths. and those who were not cured inevitably became so sick they died. The name can be used to express that a person is evil. According to northern Albanian folklore, a woman is not born a witch, but she becomes one, often because she is childless or is made evil by envy. A strong belief in God could make people immune to a witch, as God would protect them. Usually Striga were described as old or middle-aged women with gray, pale, green, or pale blue eyes and a crooked nose. Their stare would make people uncomfortable, and people were supposed to avoid looking them directly in the eye because they had the evil eye called Striga. To ward off a witch, people could take a pinch of salt in their fingers and touch their closed eyes, mouth, and heart, and the opposite part of the heart in the pit of the stomach, and then throw the salt in the same direction and say, I don't speak Romanian, so I don't think I can say this right. Sit I delsin, sit I plasin, or just whisper 3 to 6 times, sit I daslin, sit I plasin. So in some regions of Albania, people have used garlic to send away the evil eye, or they have placed a puppet in the house being built to catch the evil eye. Newborns, children, or beautiful girls have been said to catch the evil eye more easily. So in some Albanian regions, when meeting such a person, especially a newborn, for the first time, people might say, Masha Allah, and touch the child's nose to show their benevolence, and so the evil eye would not catch to the child. And I wonder what that one is part of the reason, because they said it's women who don't have children tend to be witches, and they cast the evil eye, and so that's why you'd have to always be protecting newborns from it.
Why are the witches going to steal the children?
No, they have the evil eye. So the evil eye, you get it because someone gives you a dirty look or because they're jealous or envious of you.
So the witches are envious of the children?
Well, that's what I'm wondering.
Because I would think that it would be the mother getting the evil eye. They'd be jealous of the mother who has the children.
Well, they might give the child a dirty look. Just an idea.
If I got the evil eye from everybody who gives me a dirty look, I can't even describe how filthy with eyeballs I would be.
You might have it. You could have it.
It's all right. Maybe I do have it. Maybe it's part of my charming personality.
We'll crack an egg over you later. We'll find out.
Ew. No, thank you.
Okay. A few effective methods for defending oneself from the Striga are as followed. A cross made out of pig bone could be placed at the entrance of a church on Easter Sunday, rendering any Striga inside unable to leave. They could then be captured and killed at the threshold of the church as they vainly attempt to pass. Now, what kind of Easter Sunday service is that?
You ever been to a Easter service at a Catholic church?
No.
That sounds about right.
They're just killing women?
No, it's just torture.
Oh.
So Amelia and I come from a Baptist background, and so on Easter we sing, and it's all about good news, and it's all very happy stuff. But no, when you go to like Palm Sunday or Easter in a Catholic church, it's heavy, real heavy.
So another way to go about getting rid of a Striga would be that after it drains the blood from a victim, the Striga would go off to the woods and regurgitate it. If a coin were to be soaked in that blood and then wrapped in a cloth, it would become an amulet offering permanent protection from any Striga. So you just have to find some random blood in the woods and dip your coin in it and some cloth.
No problem. You want to go do that tomorrow?
Sure.
I'm sure we can go find some blood in the woods. I mean, that seems totally reasonable.
I got a ton of woods behind my place.
We'll you're off all day tomorrow, right?
I am, yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Let's go find
go.
blood and dip coins in it.
In the Albanian Catholic legend, it is said that the Striga can be destroyed using holy water with a cross in it. And in their Islamic myth, it is said the Striga can be sent away or killed by reciting verses from the Quran, specifically, and I'm so sorry, I'm probably going to mispronounce this, Ayatul Kursi 225 Surah al-Baqarah, and spitting water on the Striga. In Balkan folklore, dhampirs are creatures that are the result of a union between a vampire and a human. This union was usually created between male vampires and female humans, with stories of female vampires mating with male humans not being super common. It was believed that male vampires have a great desire for women, so a vampire will return to have intercourse with his wife or with a woman he was attracted to in his real life. So, this can often explain, like, In Serbia, widow might blame her new pregnancy on her late husband because he was a vampire, and that's how she got pregnant.
Do people actually buy that?
They did at one point.
Okay.
In Bulgarian folklore, vampires are sometimes said to deflower virgins. And sexual activity of the vampire seems to be a peculiarity of the Southern Slavic vampire belief as opposed to other Slavs, although a similar motif also occurs in Belarusian legends. Some of the more common causes of vampirism in Slavic folklore include being a magician or an immoral person, suffering an unnatural or untimely death such as suicide, excommunication, improper burial ritual, an animal jumping or a bird flying over the corpse, or an animal jumping or a bird flying over the corpse of the empty grave before you went inside of it, and even being born with a caul, teeth, or a tail. Don't know how many people are born with tails, but actually I think people sometimes are born with tails and it's just not talked about a lot.
Right. They have them removed at birth. And I think that a lot of people who are born with tails don't know they were born with a tail.
Yeah.
There are certain things that parents never, ever, ever tell their children.
Were you born with a tail? Do you know someone who's born with a tail? Why are you saying it like that?
I know someone who was born without a particular part of their body, and it had to be surgically created. Well, I'm not going to say here.
Well, that's very weird. I hope I wasn't born with anything. You know what? It wasn't until I was 27 I found out I was a C-section, and I had a total, complete existential crisis over it.
Why?
I don't know, because I felt like, what does that mean in the grand scheme of things?
Absolutely nothing. So I had my cord wrapped around my neck. Brendan was a natural birth. Eddie was an emergency C-section, and Fran was a planned. Mom really stressed out about Fran's delivery because Mom had to pick the day Fran was going to be born, and she wasn't sure if she was going to pick the right day.
Was she born on a Saturday?
I don't know.
Okay, that's enough about that. Untimely death, suicide, excommunication. Oh yes, tail, or even being conceived on certain days of the week. In southern Russia, people who were known to talk to themselves were believed to be at high risk of becoming vampires. Slavic vampires were able to appear as butterflies, echoing an earlier belief of the butterfly symbolizing a departed soul. I read that and I actually liked it. Not because of vampires, but because the butterfly could symbolize a departed soul. Because we have a family member who died, and whenever I see a monarch butterfly, I kind of think it's her. Some traditions spoke of living vampires or people with two souls, a kind of witch capable of leaving its body and engaging in harmful and vampiric activity while sleeping. Among the beliefs of the East Slavs in much of Russia are unique in that their undead, while having many features of vampires or other Slavic peoples, do not drink blood and do not bear a name derived from the common Slavic root for vampire. Ukrainian and Belarusian legends are more conventional, although in Ukraine, vampires may sometimes not be described as dead at all, or may be seen as engaging in vampirism long before death, which I guess is kind of the same thing. But in Ukrainian folklore, they're also describing vampires as having red faces and tiny tails. During cholera epidemics of the 19th century, there were cases of people being buried alive by their neighbors on charges of being vampires. In South Slavic folklore, a vampire was believed to pass through several distinct stages in its development. The first 40 days were considered decisive for making of a vampire. It started out as an invisible shadow and then gradually gained strength from the lifeblood of the living, forming a typically invisible, jelly-like, boneless mass, and eventually building up a human-like body nearly identical to the one the person had in life. This development allowed the creature to ultimately leave its grave and begin a new life as a human. The vampire, who was usually male, was also sexually active and could have children, either with his widow or a new wife. These dhampirs, who were born, could have the special ability to kill vampires and become vampire hunters themselves. People born on Saturdays also have the ability to become vampire hunters. In the Dalmatian region of Croatia, there is a female vampire called Mora, or Morana, who drinks the blood of men. and also the Kuzlak or Kozlak, who are the recent dead who had not lived piously. They can be men or women who show themselves at a crossroad, bridges, caves, and graveyards and frighten the locals by terrorizing their homes and drinking their blood. To be killed, a wooden stake must be thrust through their body. In Croatia, Slovenia, Czech Republic, and Slovakia, the type of vampire called pijavica, which translates to leech, is used to describe a vampire who led an evil, sinful life as a human, and, in turn, becomes a powerfully strong, cold-blooded killer. Incest, especially between a mother and son, is one of the ways in which a pijavica can be created. And then it usually comes back to victimize its former family, who can only protect their homes by placing mashed garlic and wine in their windows and thresholds to keep it from entering. It can only be killed by fire while awake and by using the rite of exorcism if found in its grave during the day. In Bulgaria, from the Middle Ages to the beginning of the 20th century, it was common practice to pin corpses through the heart with an iron stake to prevent them from returning as a vampire. More on that later. To ward off the threat of vampires and disease, twin brothers, and Beth, you will know I love twins. And so I was very interested to see how these twins always play in with vampires. Okay. To ward off the threat of vampires and disease, twin brothers would yoke twin oxen to a plow and make a furrow with it around their village. An egg would be broken, a nail driven into the floor beneath the bier of the house of a recently deceased person. 2 or 3 elderly women would attend the ceremony the evening after the funeral and stick 5 hawthorn pegs or old knives into the grave, 1 at the position of the deceased's chest and 4 others at the position of his arms and legs. And this is actually pretty common that people do this, and a lot of times they'll put something at the head too to create kind of like a cross along the body. Other texts maintain that running backwards uphill with a lit candle and a turtle would ward off a stalking vampire. Now, how do you think they came to that?
I have no idea, but do you want to hear a really sad turtle story? So I was driving with Brendan, and I was driving the car,
Is this a squished turtle story?
Yes, it was so sad. Because I drove over the turtle, and I made sure it went under the middle of my car, and it lived. And I was like,
okay.
Oh, that turtle. And I went to pull over and run back and get it, pull it out of the middle of the road. And the lady behind me ran it over. And I was like, oh my God, this is the saddest thing I've ever seen. That's all I can think of when I think of turtles now. I'm sorry.
Oh. Or you can just think about warding off a vampire and run up a hill backwards with a lit candle in one hand and a turtle in the other. Okay. So alternatively, they may surround the grave with a red woolen thread, ignite the thread, and wait until it was burnt up. If a noise was heard at night and suspected to be made by a vampire sneaking around someone's house, one would shout, "Come tomorrow and I'll give you some salt." Or, "Go, pal, get some fish and come back."
Those are very interesting accents that those people have.
One of the earliest recordings of vampire activity came from the region of Istria in modern Croatia in 1672. Local reports cited local vampire Giergrando of the village of Kringa near Tingen as the cause of panic amongst the villagers. A former peasant, Gier died in 1656. However, local villagers claimed he returned from the dead and began drinking blood of people and sexually harassing his widow. The village leader ordered a stake be driven through his heart, but when that method failed to kill him, he was subsequently beheaded with better results. Among the Romani people, mullo, which means one who is dead, are believed to return from the dead and cause malicious acts as well as drink human blood, most often that of a relative or person who has caused their death. Other potential victims were those who did not properly observe burial ceremonies or kept the deceased possessions instead of properly destroying them. Female vampires could return, lead a normal life, and even marry, but it would eventually exhaust the husband with their sexual appetite. The Romanis also have vampires, but when a woman and a vampire procreate, they create the vampire who could then be hired to detect and get rid of vampires. What?
So it's like a demi-vampire. Like Hercules was a demigod?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Half vampire, half human. The Romani believed those who had a horrible appearance, were missing a finger, or had appendages similar to those of an animal were believed to be a vampire. A person who died alone and unseen would become a vampire.
Wait a second. So if you had chicken legs, you could be a vampire?
You could be a vampire.
If you had an accident and lost a finger, you
were
might be a
definitely
vampire.
You were a vampire.
Oh, man. I could probably go on like this all day long.
Yeah. Likewise, if the corpse swelled or turned black before burial, you could be a vampire. Dogs,
Wait
cats...
Wait a second. So if your corpse swelled, then the corpse would be a vampire? Not like the person burying it and saw it blow up. They don't become a vampire, do they?
No.
Okay. It was a little confusing. I just wanted a little clarification.
Dogs, cats, plants, or even agricultural tools could become vampires. Pumpkins or melons kept in the house too long would start to move, make noise, or even show blood. Roma people in Kosovo believed that vampires were invisible to most people, but could be seen by a twin brother and sister born on a Saturday who wore their clothes inside out. Right? How do they find this stuff out?
Bizarrely specific.
I know. Well, that's what I was saying about running backwards up a hill with a candle and a turtle. Like, how do they find that out?
So, I mean, there have to be regulations or something about, is it the twin brother or the twin sister who was born first? And which one of them can only have one eye open?
What are you talking about?
And should the other one be hopping on one foot?
No. Okay. Likewise, a settlement could be protected by finding twins who could see vampires outdoors at night. But here's the catch. If they're twins, they would have to see the vampires at night, right? To protect their village, they would then have to flee immediately once they spotted the vampire.
So how would they tell the village that there was a vampire?
I don't know.
Did they have to send up a flare?
Now let's travel to Serbia.
Hang on. I'm not ready to let this one go yet. If they didn't come back, is that how the village knew there was a vampire? And how does the village know that it was a vampire and not like a random goat that ate them? Or maybe a bear?
I don't know.
Carry on.
More questions?
Not yet.
Okay. So now let's travel to Serbia, where the first recorded vampire is buried in a secluded cemetery just outside a village called, here I go.
Vampirousness.
No. Kisiljevo.
Kisiljevo. You've never been there?
No, not yet.
All right. I think that you should scrap your trip to Moldova and you should go to Kisiljevo in Serbia.
Yeah, I saw a video of this place. It's cool. So it's an overgrown cemetery that's mostly forgotten. And it's like an overgrown corner in an overgrown cemetery where there are all these gravestones that have no writing on them. So beneath...
Because they're super duper old and the writing wore off, or...
No, I think they just didn't do it then.
Oh.
In Serbia.
You don't think that like the vampire came up and was like, I don't want anyone to know it's me, and erased his headstone?
No, it was from 1725, so I just don't think they did it.
Well, we have graves here in the States from the 1600s that have...
I understand that, but we're not Serbian.
Okay, whatever.
They have different cultures there. Okay. So under one of those gravestones, which obviously no one knows which one it is because they're all unnamed, is a man named Petar Blagojevic. So in 1725, it was written that he would rise from the grave and hunt villagers. And I read in an article that I found online that his 5 times great-grandson is still alive and still lives in the area. And I thought it was so funny because the only thing he commented in the article, they had this article on this vampire buried out in the middle of nowhere. And all this guy says is, we don't talk about being related to the vampire. And that's
seems fair enough.
That's all I have to say about it. All right. And I thought that was very just.
Hey, every family's got stuff that they don't talk about.
So I don't know. I thought it was funny. I thought it was very like a cliche Eastern European male response. Like, we do not talk about being the vampire. Okay. So in Austrians,
maybe you can get Paul to come over and say it in his nice Russian accented voice.
Paul doesn't have an accent.
Yes, he does.
No, he doesn't.
Yes, he does.
Pavel? No, he doesn't. He speaks Russian beautifully, though. And he is just such a fabulous singer. He sings to me sometimes in Russian, and I cry. It's beautiful. Okay.
He's really singing about you need to go clean the toilet.
Oh, no, he isn't. No, he sings beautiful songs. Okay.
Could you imagine?
An Austrian surgeon is credited with creating the world's first vampire craze. In 1732, he rode into the Siberian countryside with a unit of soldiers to find proof of vampires. In his report, he says he witnessed the excavation of a suspected grave where the corpse was staked. He says he saw these creatures scream and bleed. And with his report, the term vampire was first used. From then on, vampires would be part of Serbian culture. So obviously not like vampire like how we say it, but vampire like how they say it. In which I can find. In 2013, the mountainous community barely touched by the modern world called Zarozje, I think that's how you say it. I don't know. The roof of a centuries-old watermill caved in. It's a seemingly insignificant to people like us, but to the villagers there, it meant the vampire named Salva Salvavavitch could be wandering the earth at night. So I have a clip of that. So this clip I found on YouTube, it was made by Content Media Group, and it's called History of Vampires. So we are going to play that right now.
It's a couple of 100 meters away from the watermill of the vampire Salva Salvavavitch.
Lion leads me to a centuries-old watermill that hasn't been used for decades. This past winter, the roof caved in, a seemingly meaningless occurrence, but to the villagers here, it set off a panic. For generations, they believed a vampire named Salva Salvavavitch lived in it. Now that it has caved in, they fear the creature is wandering the land.
What he's saying is when Salva would come to the watermill, he would always look through this window and see who was in here. And if he saw someone inside, then he would know that he had a meal waiting.
Slobodan Jagovic has lived on this land all his life. His family has owned it for centuries.
This is my grandfather. He lived to be 84 years old. He was one of the strongest men in the village, but he would never dare to spend the night in the watermill if you gave him all of Serbia.
Spooky.
Very.
And so I'm sure, Beth, when you saw this, we were watching the video, the inside of the watermill has like graffiti on it, like people writing on it. And like he said, like the vampire would look through, and if he saw you, he'd eat you. So I imagine it's like all like the Serbian ghost hunters or the Serbian youths, like being extra spooky, like going in there and making out. I don't know.
Okay, yeah.
Just having like some fun.
Yeah. Probably just kids being kids. I think
Yeah.
they do the same thing all over the
That's
world.
what I mean.
I have to admit, I wasn't necessarily watching the video. I was listening to it as I looked through what your suggested videos are in your YouTube queue. It's a little scary.
It's just vampires and Jeffrey Dahmer. Okay. So that's over there in Serbia. It's a little true life. All those people are alive. They're still very worried about it. This is happening nowadays. Now we're going to move over to the villages of modern day Bulgaria, which still believe in vampires and have different rituals for warding them off. Again, like there's a lot of ways to become a vampire, but a common one is if you're around a village and you're kind of like a loner, no one really knows who you are, and you die, people become extremely concerned that you're going to be a vampire. And so some rituals that they do to ensure vampires don't rise from the grave is they bury the body under large rocks, and they plant I saw this in a documentary. They plant the verbena plant, which I guess is very poisonous, around the grave. And it said like, cause it's poison, maybe like the poison will drip into the grave and keep the vampire down there. And in the village, the men, this is really cool. The men, they'll set up these huge fires of hot coals, and then they'll spread the coals out to make a cross, and then they'll dance on the hot coals. They like set themselves into a trance and like dance on the coals. What?
I said cool, and then I corrected myself to say hot.
Yeah, no, it is. It's very cool. So in 2012, archaeologists in the Bulgarian Black Sea town of Sozopol unearthed two 800-year-old skeletons with iron rods piercing through their chests. And they are considered to be the first suspected vampires ever found. So 800 years this has been going on. And here in America, they tell us, oh, it's just based off Vlad the Impaler. They're not real. It's just based off Vlad the Impaler. It's real. It's real, baby. They've been going on forever. Okay. So, an apparent sign that locals believe it might occur to the tomb, blah, 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 blah. So, these aren't the first vampire skeleton burials discovered in the Balkan countries. However, they are the oldest suspected vampire graves that have been found. So, on season 2, episode 4 of the then Travel Channel show, now Discovery Channel show, Expedition Unknown, which I love, which is hosted by Josh Gates, takes a tooth from one of the graves and has it tested in the U.S. And Beth, what does he find? What does he find?
He finds that Amelia has developed a huge crush on Josh Gates.
Shh, don't tell him. Don't tell him.
If Josh Gates listens to the show, Amelia would very much like to get your autograph or a shirtless picture.
Shh. No. He's married and I'm almost married. Shh, keep my secrets. Okay. So what did he find? He found that the skeletal remains show the person had porphyria. And Beth, what is porphyria otherwise known as?
Poison ivy.
Vampire
disease.
Can you believe that?
That was going to be my second guess.
Can you believe that though? Oh man, they found this out on the show and I was like on the edge of my seat. I was so excited. So, part of the symptoms of porphyria is you become extremely sensitive to sunlight. It causes your gums in your mouth to retract. And so that way your teeth look really big. For some reason, it said this on the show, but I looked it up later and I couldn't find it anywhere. But it causes an aversion to garlic.
Thank God I'm not a vampire.
I know, right? I love garlic.
Because so far I was on track to being a vampire. I'm very pale. I have big teeth.
And blistering skin?
Yes, if I go in the sun, my skin will blister.
Maybe you're a vampire, Beth.
I very well could be a vampire.
You very well could be. So, you might think I chose this episode because Vlad the Impaler episode was our most listened to episode of all time and I like getting likes. But no, that is very wrong. The real reason is when Paul and I got engaged last fall. Beth, I believe I told you this story. So when we first got engaged, I really wanted to go on this like crazy honeymoon and go to Kiev, Chisinau, and Bucharest. Paul was kind of like humoring me with it because he's like, there's no way we're going to be able to go to all those countries. Like it's COVID. But now, like, we're on track to get our vaccines. Like, we might be able to go. And he's like, we're not going. Like, you're crazy. But before that, I was like really excited. And I was like, oh my God, he's going to let us go. We're going to go to Moldova. We're going to go to Ukraine. We're going to go to Romania. This is going to be wonderful. And so his mom was like, please don't go to Romania. And then I told my dad and he was like, what is wrong with you? Like, why can't you be normal? Like, why are you my daughter? Why can't you just go somewhere like sunny and fun or like normal for your honeymoon?
You know, like Walt Disney World.
Yeah, like Walt Disney World, like
right.
Like places normal people go. Like, Why do you have to go to Eastern Europe? So he calls me like 2 days later and he's like, I want you to come over. I need you to show you something. So I put my mask on. I went over to my parents and he pulls up his DVR and he has DVR'd this episode of Expedition Unknown and he is now fast forwarding it, the vampire episode. There we go. Expedition Unknown, where Josh Gates, who's also from Massachusetts, and he has my dream job, and he's a really cool person, goes to learn about the vampires. And my dad's like, I just want you to know what Romania is like before you decide to go there. Here's the story. In 2004, 6 people in a small Romanian village of Craiova, which is about 3 hours outside of Bucharest, dug up the body of Petre Toma, a 76-year-old school teacher who was actually related to a lot of the people who dug him up. And the reason they did this is they thought he was a vampire because after he died, all these people in the village started getting really sick and no one knew why. And they started having dreams of Petre Toma. So that was the big thing. Like they were dreaming of him a lot. They were all getting really sick. They're like, okay, this guy's definitely a vampire, right? So 6 of them got together. They dug up his body. And they severely mutilated it. Like severe mutilation. And they took his heart out. They burned his heart to ash. And they made it into tea. And they made everyone in the village drink the tea. And they were all cured.
Horrible.
They were all cured. Cured. Not only were they cured, no one regrets it. No one's upset they did it. The 6 guys got 6 months jail time. But they had it like removed. Like they didn't actually have to do jail. It was just there. So they were charged, but there were no consequences at all.
All right. Well, if you go to honeymoon in Romania, just don't drink any tea.
All right. But anyway, I just wanted to, I'm going to play some clips from it. And I just wanted to say that this is, it still happens. It happens a lot where people think that they're vampires. Like, this isn't every day in Romania. So, like, don't start thinking that. But this did happen in 2004. So we're going to watch it again. This is Expedition Unknown on then Travel Channel, now Discovery Channel.
I come face to face with Matrika Mircea. Nice to meet you. He greets me with a handshake, but I can't say that I feel at ease out here in the middle of the woods. Thank you very much for talking with me. I appreciate it.
Îți mulțumește foarte mult pentru că poți să-i spui...
Vă mulțumesc,
I've read about this story about this man, Petre Toma. You were involved in that story, yes?
Da, am fost.
Yes, I was the leader of the group. Several people in the village became ill. In their sleep, they saw visions of Petre Toma, who had recently died. So we took action.
When you opened the grave, did the man look like a strigoi? Was there anything strange about his body?
When I opened the grave, Toma had blood in the corners of his mouth, and his beard and nails had grown. These are the signs of the strigoi.
Do you understand why somebody would be upset that this happened?
People were sick. We performed the ceremony and they got better, immediately better. What we did saved them.
Matrika isn't backtracking a single step on his actions. Not only is he not sorry, he's convinced that he was right to dig up his neighbor's grave. I saw the photographs of what you did to that body. And what about guilt? Do you ever feel bad about what you did?
No.
Absolutely not. You do not understand. This is not one event. This has happened many times.
To learn that this is not an isolated incident is shocking. It turns out that in many Romanian burials, people's hearts are pierced with a pin or thorn to prevent them from becoming strigoi in the first place.
What we did to save people.
Mm-hmm. I can certainly see that. You really believe that what you did was for a good cause.
Okay, so that's how that guy feels about it. And now we are going to look at this next clip is from Timeline World Documentaries on YouTube, and it is called How Does Vampire Folklore Differ Around the World? Vampire Island. And we are going to talk to more people who were there during this event in 2004. So here we go.
In February 2004, the authorities were called in to the small village of Craiova, southwest Romania, to investigate 6 people alleged to have impaled the body of a villager, Tom Petre, who, according to them, had transformed himself into a vampire after his death. My brother-in-law died, and when he died, he became a vampire. The villagers believed that Petre was returning from the grave and feasting on his next of kin.
I saw him coming at night. He was calling. I was screaming. He was sucking our blood.
His relatives were gradually fading away.
I had stomachache. I turned yellow. Everybody in the neighborhood witnessed how bad I was feeling at night.
In Slavic society, it is still believed that a person's spirit lingers for 40 days after death. So there was only one solution. 6 weeks after his funeral, as midnight approached, Petre's family snuck into the cemetery and dug up his corpse. Its condition confirmed their worst suspicions.
We found him with his hands at his side like this. His neck was torn, and his mouth was full of blood.
A corpse full of blood, a sure sign that Petre had become a vampire.
Blood has a symbolism in many religions. There's the drinking of wine to symbolize Jesus' blood in Christianity, but there's also the drinking of blood to gain supernatural powers in many other religions. And so the presence of blood around the mouth must have been truly terrifying.
The villagers did what their beliefs required.
We worked inside the grave, and we did everything properly. This is my pitchfork. We used it to remove the heart.
That's a serious pitchfork.
And a dead man's heart is not supposed to have blood in it if he isn't a vampire. So we burn it and we drank the ashes together with water. We drank the ashes and immediately we felt better.
In Romania, at least, the vampire is no legend. It remains a very real threat, a night-lurking creature that preys on our deepest fears in the margin between life and death.
So what do you think about that?
There were some pretty scary pictures in that last video.
I know. And I like how that girl, it's just too bad all of our listeners, please go look at that video, because it just like gets me how the girl's like, yeah, and his heart was filled with blood. So explain that, like, he wasn't a vampire. Come on.
It would have been interesting if we could have brought like a mortician, somebody who actually prepares the bodies for burial, to talk about what they do to the bodies before they bury them. So, because I don't know, you know, like, are most bodies still full of blood? I thought they had to drain all the blood. That's part of the embalming process.
They don't embalm people in rural villages in Romania.
I would think it would be a health thing.
Just get thrown in a box and put in the ground. But that is something that they talk about a lot. So, you know, one thing, you know, as we look through the history of time and all these vampires and strigoi, why people think they're vampires. So one is that they get big, and people think they're getting bigger once they're dead from sucking people's souls, but it's really just all the gases in your body. Mm-hmm. So they say a lot of times, especially in Romania, they will pierce you with knives and sticks and stuff, like all the way down your body to make you into that coffin, or put like large rocks on you. But what that actually does is it helps release the gases. So that's why those people don't blow up.
Makes sense.
Another reason is they'll think people are moving once they've died, like they'll move around. But that's just kind of rigor mortis taking place. Mm-hmm. So like we know that happens now. So that's an explanation for that. And then I've watched so many vampire documentaries in the last 48 hours. It's crazy. But another thing is that they say it's very common for your mouth to fill up with blood, and for like blood to be like right around the edges of the mouth. They say that's just kind of like what happens. And so it's pretty common that that would happen. But I don't know. I still kind of think vampires are real.
Okay.
I think vampires are real more now than I did a year ago.
Okay.
Because I thought before they were just like, you know, Bram Stoker kind of just created this very fictional thing, and I want to suck your blood, which like, it's not even how people over there talk, and can't see in a mirror. I don't really believe that, but I do believe that someone could turn into a cat. Someone with like magical powers.
Someone like Professor McGonagall. She's from Harry Potter.
Oh. Maybe, who knows? Vampires could be real.
They could be. I've never seen one.
I don't know. I mean, how would you know? I don't know.
I've never been attacked by a vampire.
I've never been attacked by a vampire.
I may in fact be a vampire. We already went over the fact that my skin blisters and I have big teeth and very pale skin. But I do like garlic.
Oh, actually, that's something else. I forgot to mention that they have, cause you know, in that clip, the guy was like, his nails grew and like his hair was growing. And I've heard that before, like for vampires, but that actually, it's not that your hair and nails grow after you die. It's that your skin retracts.
Yep.
So they like appear to grow.
Yeah. When we were little, Dad used to tell this story about somebody whose coffin got opened up and it was all full of hair. As though like the person's hair like kept growing after they died, like, and like filled the coffin. I'm like, whoa. No, I don't think so.
Maybe.
There's only so many, you know, body processes that are going to keep going.
I mean, if it filled the coffin.
Yeah, it just seemed, that just seemed ridiculous.
It's definitely a vampire.
But you would think if it was a vampire, wouldn't they have been able to get out, go do their vampire thing? Because otherwise, if it's just the spirit of the vampire, right? We have another name for that. It's just called a ghost.
So one thing I didn't show from that, because it didn't really fit in, but it was like kind of cool to watch. So they were at this abandoned church in the outskirts of Bucharest, and it was this Orthodox church that was closed in 1974, dedicated to St. Andrew. And I guess there, St. Andrew protects you against vampires. But it was closed when communism came into town, so in like the 1940s. And so they're there and they're doing it at night. It's like extra spooky when you go at night. And they come across this sarcophagus that's like opened a little. And like Josh goes over to look in it, and all of a sudden, meow, a cat jumps out. The cat
Did he go, oh, nice kitty.
Something like that.
I'm sure that's what he meant when he screamed and cursed, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yep. That's some history on Eastern European vampires.
Cool.
And guess what, Beth?
What?
Paul saw how excited I was the last 2 days working on this episode.
And he's getting you your own vampire?
He said we could go to Romania for a honeymoon.
Oh, isn't that sweet?
So
don't drink any tea.
I won't drink any tea, but let's all knock on wood that we can get our vaccines and we can go over to Romania.
Okay.
That's all I want. Okay, so Beth.
Amelia.
Did you know we got a drive-by ghosting that came in about 2 hours prior to us recording this episode?
I did, and I am really excited to read it.
I am excited for you to read it too.
Okay. Shall I take it away?
Please do.
So here is the first drive-by ghosting that I am reading for the season, and I am super excited about this. So the subject line is, loved the last episode. Hello there. My name is Ben. I'm a frequent listener of your podcast, and I've really enjoyed sitting back to listen to some spooky stories while I get work done from home these days. My cat clearly also finds listening in very relaxing. It was really a treat to listen to your last episode on haunted prisons, not in the least because it came out on my birthday, and
Happy birthday!
And I forgot which day you uploaded on. So yes, happy birthday, Ben. I was thinking about writing in a week ago, but I couldn't really convince myself to. However, when I heard that you got, all capital letters, no mail on my birthday episode, I decided something needed to be done. Thank you so much, Ben. So please accept my heartfelt gratitude for your excellent podcast, and let me also share with you my only paranormal encounter to date. I don't think I can leave reviews on Spotify, but I would definitely toss a hefty 5 stars your way.
Hey,
Ghost Hunting in
thank
New
you.
England, soon to be your favorite spooky podcast.
Woohoo.
Oh, all of that was so nice, Ben, and
Very
thank you
nice.
for kind of stoking Amelia's ego a little. She definitely needs that from time to time.
Yeah, and Beth's too.
Beth is a perfectly content egomaniac all on her own. All right, here's Ben's story. This encounter occurred in the spring of 2018, and I'll throw in a trigger warning just in case. At the time, my mother had an extremely aggressive form of cancer. We didn't know it then, but her disease would later claim her life, although if I'm being honest, I had prepared to hear the worst for some time. It was late in the afternoon, and I was driving to the hospital to visit her after class. I was in college at the time, and of course, like most people, I had my phone connected to the radio in the car so I could listen to my own music. Somehow, that day really felt like a third eye blind day. So I was driving down the road alone, blaring my music and watching the sun slowly set when all of a sudden my music cut out. This isn't too unusual if you're using Bluetooth or if the cable randomly falls out, but the cord connecting my phone to the car was clearly plugged in, right? And I wasn't using a wireless connection. I began to look around the car in confusion. Did my phone die? No. Did my car battery give out? No. It was all very mundane until after a few seconds a voice came over the speakers in the car. It was very, very loud on account of my blaring music from earlier, and it really scared the crap out of me. Over and over it repeated, "The circle of death. The circle of death. The circle of death." All right, I'm not even sure that I can finish reading this story.
Spooky. Spooky.
Now, I don't really believe in the paranormal per se, but this struck me as totally shocking, and I haven't been able to explain this incident rationally. At the time, I took the meaning of the circle of death, to perhaps be alluding to Indian Point, a nuclear power plant I live near in southern New York. Side note, the story here is that there is a 30-mile evacuation zone surrounding the power plant if it ever had a serious meltdown, and a 50-mile minimum safe distance to escape radiation poisoning. End side note. However, after my mother passed away later that same year, in fact just a month or two later, it took a totally new meaning for me, and I interpreted it as some kind of warning about the way I was living. Maybe that I was caught in a cycle that would lead to my death, or that I would experience more passing like in the case of my mother. Luckily, though, I can tell you that no one else in my family has passed away since then, and yeah, the nuclear power plant definitely didn't explode. So I'm not sure what to make of this one. Paranormal experience? Technical malfunction. Was my third eye finally becoming unblinded?
Nice.
I hope...
Nice. Nice.
I hope you ladies have a good time dissecting this one, and I hope this meets the standards for your drive-by ghostings. Thanks for listening. I can't wait to listen in next week. Sincerely, Ben.
Ben, thank you. First of all, we are so sorry, and our deepest condolences with the passing of your mother. Awful.
Very much so.
Second, the nuclear power plant is going to be fine because, side note, my grandfather designed it. Next.
Stop it.
Yeah. So
Really?
my dad was born in New York. My grandfather was on a big team that designed, so my grandfather was a nuclear physicist, a nuclear engineer. So he designed most of the power plants in New York.
That's crazy.
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
So not only all that, but I loved your joke about third eye blind. That was great. And it reminded me, and I know I've shared this on the show before, but when one of my friends, her father died that night and I was at home, the plasmatics came on my CD player. You remember the story about in the middle of the night? And it was playing the song, The Prince of Darkness.
Ooh.
And I always thought that was really scary. That always really spooked me out a lot. But I like how you made the connection and you connected it into something positive in your life. Like you should make positive changes based on this, like not live in fear and, live in the circle of life and good energy. And beyond all of this, I like that you listen to our show with your cat.
Whose name is Ella.
Ella, hey, listen to with my cat, Ella. Got it? You got it. It's Rihanna. I was in a meeting the other day with someone who met Rihanna.
Oh, Umbrella. Gotcha.
Umbrella, Ella, hey. That's how the song goes. Do you have anything to say?
I don't music. I don't know why.
Well, it's been about 20 years. So. It's been out for a while.
Okay. I only listen to 50-year-old music. I'm always tuned into the classic rock station.
You got anything else, Beth?
No, I really don't have anything else. Thanks everybody for joining us for Tales of the Vampires of Eastern Europe. Next week, please tune back in for something different, but it will primarily, I think, be me talking next week.
It will be only you talking next week. Do you want to tell them what it is?
Please tune back in next week for Haunted Shipping Ports of Massachusetts. So those of you that enjoy a good haunted sailing tale, we may find some of those for you for next week. But in the meantime,
you can find us online at facebook.com/Ghost Hunting in New England, on Twitter, Ghost Hunting NE, on Instagram at Ghost Hunting in New England. We are getting so many likes on Instagram. It is crazy. Our posts get 300 likes or they get 2 likes. And I don't know why that happens, but please go like all of our posts. You can find us on our website, ghosthuntinginnewengland.com. Did I update it? No, I didn't. But Beth did some work on it.
I have not actually done work. I haven't done work actually on the website, but I have written a whole bunch of blurbs about episodes that we have done.
There you go.
They are almost ready to be uploaded.
A. B. And that is how you can find all of us. Please leave us a 5-star review. We really need some more. And thank you to Aaron Schilb for writing our music. You can check out his podcast, Nashville Tour Stop, anywhere you can find podcasts. And as always,
wait, if you're in a restaurant Make sure that you're tipping for takeout. We're living in a pandemic.
And as always,
happy hunting.